Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of our podcast. Justin is miming a drum set, saying we should have some intro music. Maybe we'll get that set up. Almost finished setting up here. I could make that happen actually. This week we'll be doing a CanJS overview with Justin Meyer, the author of CanJS and CEO of Bitovi. So without further ado, feel free to get started. Oh, if you are joining us for the first time as well, if you have questions for us, feel free to ask in our Gitter chat. That's Gitter/Bitovi/JS-training, I believe, if I got the URL off the top of my head. Yes, that's correct. And Justin, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thanks, Alexis. I'm going to share my screen. And yeah, like Alexis said, today we are doing an overview of CanJS, and what we'll use is to do MVC, of course, and we will build to do MVC while exploring some of the finer parts of CanJS. To start off here, I have just the basic HTML for to do MVC, and I have the CSS for to do MVC. And at the bottom of my page, I've loaded jQuery, CanJS, the version of CanJS that runs on jQuery, and the three most popular best plugins, the define plugin, which allows you to define getter setters on observable can maps, CanStash, which is a better, more powerful templating engine than the default one, which is CanMustache, and then finally CanFixture, which allows us to simulate AJAX requests. So without further ado, the first thing I want to do with CanJS is typically put, instead of just HTML on the page, I'm going to put it into a template. And I'm going to put it in a CanStash template and render that CanStash template to the page. So the easiest way of doing this, although I don't recommend doing it this way, if you're building a bigger application, you can use something like Steel.js or some other dependency management solution to import your templates. But if for something like a JS bin, this is the easiest way to add a template to the page, create a script with a type text and the type of template you have. In this case, we want to use the Stash engine, and then give it an ID. We'll call this app stash. So there I've created a template, but I need to render it with data into the page. So I'm not going to render it with any data for now. I'm just going to load the template as a renderer function, which these are functions that you can call with data and they produce a document fragment. But I can get that template from the page with CanView and pass it the ID of the element in the page that has the template, in this case, AppStash. So essentially, CanJS is looking at this element, getting its contents, and converting it to a template renderer function that when I call it, some data, gives me a document fragment. And a document fragment is, it's just a collection of elements. And with that, you can add those elements, for instance, to the page. So if I just wanted to add this at the end of the body, I do that. And we're taking the content here, converting it to template, rendering that template, and we get out the elements in the page. And a fragment can be used with jQuery. It can also be appended directly. If I just wanted to, I could also write this out, document.body, and child. A fragment can be used with jQuery or with or the normal DOM elements, so they're very handy. It's like a bunch of elements that can get appended all at once. And this is a live collection of elements. So if I were to change observable data that was used to by the template to render elements, if I change that observable data, the page updates. And we'll take a look at this, what I mean by this in one instant. First, let's just change. I'm going to move. I wish my screen was just a tiny bit wider, because I need to kind of be editing the template and my JavaScript at the same time. Let's just give it the number of items left for right now. Say, I'm going to pass data items left, 2 items left. And with stash, I can go into the template, the stash template, and with these magic curly braces, I can write the data, I can access the data that was passed to the template. So I could write items left here. Now we get 2 items left. And if I change this to 1, now it says 1 items left. Now, that's all right, but really what we want to do is render what we really want to pass to this template is our list of items and derive the number of items left from that. And normally when you're working with CanJS, instead of working with plain JavaScript objects and arrays and types, you work with observable data. So what I mean by that is I can create a list of to-dos. So CanJS has a observable array type, which is called CanList. And within that, I could pass a bunch of to-dos. So I could give ID 1, name, dishes, and complete is true. I can create a few of these to-dos. I'm just going to hide my HTML for a second. So I'm going to create 3 different to-dos. I'm going to do mow lawn. What's something else people have to do? Alexis.
Clean laundry.
Laundry. That's a terrible one. Okay, so here I've got my to-dos, and what I want to do is I want to pass that to my template as to-dos. And instead of hard coding which to-dos we're going through by listing out the HTML, I'm actually going to iterate through each to-do that was passed to the template and write its name out and write whether it's completed out or not. So to do this, I'm going to go through each to-do. And for each to-do, I'm going to write out an LI.
So up until this point, it's just been HTML, just stock HTML that happened to be in a script tag. But this new syntax, could you explain what each to-dos is?
Yeah, I kind of explained a little bit when I talked about items left, but I will talk about what's going on here. Except that it's not doing what I expect. Maybe the auto run is forked. Let's see here. Let's see what happens when I remove these. What did I do wrong? So I am trying the minor release. I wonder if there's an unreleased version. I wonder if that's a mistake for this demo. Maybe I should be using a production release. Although I doubt that this is something that would have been broken. Does it look like something I'm doing wrong? Oh, I know what it is. I need to create a new CAN list. There we go. So you always need to use a new operator when you're creating something new. Otherwise, this extends. That will be gone in 3.0, where you won't have to pass new. Anyways, so here I created a new list of to-dos and I'm passing it and I'm going through each to-do. And what I want to list is in each to-do is its name. So it doesn't say do the dishes each time. I'm gonna then write out each to-do's name. So let's talk about what's going on here. Pound each is gonna look up to-dos in the scope of this template. And the scope of this template is currently the data that was passed here. So it's going to find these to-dos and it's going to go through each one of them. And for each to-do, it's going to render this subsection with the new context of the subsection. So what data properties will be looked up on? It'll will be each individual to-do. So that's why I write name, because there's an implicit, almost like to-do.name going on inside of here, right? It looks up name on the current context of the sub-expression. So that's why we get the name. Now here I'm writing out the names. Now what I also want to do, well, I'll do this in a second. I want to show the observable nature. But one thing I can add here is if the to-do is complete, I want to add the class name complete. I'm going to write if complete, if the to-do is complete, let's make this a little bit bigger. If the to-do is complete, I want to write complete. Is it completed or complete? Let's complete it. I want to write completed. And then there's a style in our CSS that's matching completed and adding this line through. Now, we talked about how CanList is an observable and actually is creating observable can maps inside of itself. What I've written here is the same as if I were writing can.map out each time. Right? If you pass a CanList, an array of objects, each object will be converted to an observable can map, which acts like an object that it stores key value pairs. But I don't need to write this. So observables are great in that the template responds to them. So if I remove my HTML, bring open my console, I have my list of to-dos here. You can see it has 3 items in it. If I were to remove an item from my to-dos, you could see the page automatically updates. Similarly, if I were to get the first item in my list of to-dos, which with a can map, instead of accessing direct with the index operator like this, instead of doing that, you use the after method, which gets a specified property. I'm going to get the first item in the to-do, which is this one, and then I'm going to get, which is dishes, and then I'm going to change its complete attribute from false to true. And you'll also notice, did I do it wrong? Oh, it is complete. I mean, sorry, I'm supposed to change it from true to false. I didn't actually change anything there. If I change it from true, it is complete, to false. And you'll notice how the page automatically updated. This is the power that observables give you. We talked a lot about these. CanJS has direct observables. So if you want something to be observable, you have to work within a CanList, CanMap, or Can Compute we'll talk about. What that looks like in a second. The advantage is, so there's a little bit more work you have to do to make everything, turn it into an observable. But the advantage is that CanJS, compared to like React or Angular, CanJS is not doing any, compared to Angular, CanJS is not doing any work right now in the page. It only updates things when, it only does any work when an actual change has happened. This is in contrast to Angular, whose dirty checking will be commonly looking for changes, constantly polling to see if anything has happened. CanJS more just waits for something to happen and is able to see it happening and then do something without having to look for it, basically. And then with React, it's different because I don't ever have to call render myself. I can just change my data and everything just kind of updates accordingly, which is really nice. So, like I mentioned, there are three different types of computes, or sorry, three different types of observables that CanJS supports. The first are lists. The second are maps, which are, remember, you can.map, like this. And then the final is a compute. And a compute can assemble other observables into a single observable value. Something like items left is really derived from the number of to-dos here that are incomplete. So I could create a compute called items left, like this, and I pass it a function. And here I can go through, I can count the number of to-dos that are incomplete. The easiest way to do this is really to return a filter. I'm going to filter the to-dos based on which item is complete or incomplete. So the items left, here's the, I'm creating a new array that only has the items that are not complete, and return the length of that array. And that's the number of items left. And I can pass this items left compute to my page. And now, like before, which is really cool, if I change the status of a to-do, the compute value actually updates itself and will update the DOM. We'll update the template is listening for when that compute changes, and we'll update the HTML of the page when that compute changes. So let's break things down a little bit. I'm gonna create. I have my items left. I have my to-do, which is gonna be just my first to-do, which I'll get like to-dos.after. Actually, I'll do it this way. I'm going to have a to-do. I'm going to show all the different types of observables in one kind of place. All right. So here's CanJS's observables. There's a can map, can lists, and computes. Now these you can do more than just pass to a template. You can do more with them, right? You can listen to them directly and do your own fun things. That's why observables are useful even outside of just live binding. For instance, let's just take a look at how you can listen to when a map changes. So on my to-do, I can bind to when it's complete property changes, and this will get called back with an event object, the new value, and the old value of the complete property when it changes. And I'll just console log this out. I might need to add it because this thing, I think, gets a little weird. Here, I'm binding on the complete property of my to-do. Now, if I were to change my to-do complete to false, I really don't like how it outputs like the whole world. You can see I get my complete change to false. It console logs. All right, so I can listen to when things happen on a to-do, or on a map, I can listen to whenever any one of its properties change. I can bind to the properties and listen to when they change. There's also a change event that gets called whenever any property changes on the to-do. But I'm not going to really talk about that because I want to talk about how you can also listen to when items are added or removed from a list. You just remove. And this gets called with, I believe, is the items that were removed and the index at which they were removed. Oh, shoot. Dang it. Up or down. Note self. Length. The removed items and the index at which they were removed. And I'm going to say removed length at plus index. So here I'm listening to when some some items are removed. Oh, I don't want to listen to length. Remove. I'm listening to when items are removed from the to-do. Is it removed or remove? I always forget. I'm pretty sure it's removed because it's add. So it's not added, so it's probably removed.
Yeah, it's removed.
Yeah. So here I'm listening to when items are removed on a list, an observable list. And if I pop, let's see, I removed one item at index 2. Cool. And then finally, there's the compute items left, which I can bind to with a change event handler. I can listen to when its compute changes its value. Jeez. Items left, bind, change. And this will get called with an event, a new value, and an old value. And I can say, oh, I gotta stop doing that. Hold on, I'm gonna write this out. I'm gonna write this out here because I keep making a mistake. Items left that bind change. I keep wanting to hit up and down, and then it loses my loses my cursor. So here I got items left I want to bind, and I'm going to console log items left plus new val to see what the new items left is. There we go. And now if I were to move an item again, well, did it not run? Well, we'll find out. I think it did, which is weird. Okay, so now if I were to remove something from to-dos again, we should see, well, I must have bound to items left twice. We see items left 1 as it changed. All right, so what CanJS provides, it's one of its central features. Really what we're looking at is all of its central features right now. The most important features of CanJS. It provides provides object-like observables that you can listen to when they change. It provides array-like observables that you can also listen to when items are added or removed. And then it provides composite-like observables that can derive their value from a bunch of other values. Like this is deriving its value from every single to-dos, the number of to-dos in the to-dos list, and each to-do's individual complete property, right? So this compute is actually listening to anytime complete changes on any to-do or the length changes, and is able to see when one thing changes and update itself and cache itself as well. So that's a cool thing. Like if I once I bind to items left, or that you pass it to a template, after that point, you can read items left as many times as you want, and it's not actually going to do any work. It's just going to return its cached value because it knows none of this information in here has changed. That's really powerful performance feature, is that you never have to recalculate anything with CanJS unless something is actually changed. So those are the big, I would call them the big four. So let me rerun. Let's, now what we're going to talk is just more about how to really, well, I guess routing is another one, but we'll get to routing at the end. And components and stuff like that. But everything else that I'm going to show really just builds, for the most part, on these three these technologies here. So they're the most important to understand. So let's go to here. So one thing CanJS has is two-way binding. There's a different. This is going to look a little bit different in the next minor version. We're not breaking compatibility, so what I'm going to write will still work. It'll just be an easier way to do it. But first, let me just show it working. So here is the each to-dos. Where is it? I'm blind. Okay, here's each to-dos checkbox. And what I want to do is change the complete status of each to-do when this checkbox changes. It's check value. So what I can write is can value. I want to two-way bind that to complete. So this will look up complete in the scope, the complete property of scope, and make it so that this input is checked if complete is checked. And if I uncheck the checkbox, it'll actually update the complete property to be false. And you can see here how items left is changing automatically. Now in minor, this isn't quite done yet, but the new version of this will look like we'd write checked equals complete in this kind of syntax here. This isn't currently working yet, but it will be hopefully tomorrow, actually. Will be shortly. So yeah, CanJS provides two-way binding, which is really nice.
Justin, could you elaborate maybe the differences between two-way binding, one-way binding, and manually getting data from the form or from the page?
So one-way binding is, I can say that this has, I want to have the checked property update when complete changes. Oh, no. Frozen.
JS bin crash?
Yeah. Let me reload maybe. It's not really, oh boy.
Oh, wow. It's a full-on tab crash. So for those following along, the way I like to explain live binding, if you're unfamiliar with a framework that has live binding as a feature, you'll hear terms like one-way live binding, two-way live binding. If you're just doing things manually, basically you need to get data from the page, like an input, and put data into the page if you change something behind the scenes. If you're getting it from the page in the old days, jQuery gives you a nice form serialize where you can get the forms data as an object. But if you make a change behind the scenes, you have to re-render some template. Usually with something like a generic render function or a draw function is typically what they're called. What Justin's illustrating now is basically removing the need for the serialize method. We want to get data automatically from the form as the form changes. Two-way is getting rid of the render or draw function. When your data changes, the form should automatically update.
Actually, I think you have it backwards. One-way binding is not, one-way binding is getting rid of the render when your data changes.
Oh, maybe I do.
Yeah. So one-way binding is like this. If I go to my console, so I've got these things are checked now. So I'm adding this check property if the complete property is truthy. You notice how I'm writing if complete here, and I'm writing just complete like this. These things do similar but slightly dissimilar things, but it is kind of a shorthand for this, but it also changes scope. For more about this, you can read CanJS's docs or like Handlebars docs. But back to talking about one-way binding versus two-way binding. Now, if I change the check here, notice that this nothing is happening right here, right? It's because two-way binding is what responds to when the user actually changes the input and will update the data. But one-way binding, which is what Stash does mostly by default, is if I change the data, so if I actually get my, go back to changing this to false, my first item to false, notice that the check was removed. That's one-way data binding. So view updates as the data changes. Two-way binding, equals complete. Two-way binding means if I change the actual input, the data will reflect the input changes. CanJS has both. Okay, so yay. So now let's take a look at the next kind of I would say major feature of CanJS, and that's its use of models. So we don't really want to get data from, kind of as lame to get, you know, what you really want in an application is you're getting data from a server typically. CanJS has CanModel, which actually I should be showing this with CanConnect now, but CanJS comes with CanModel, which allows you to connect observable data to a RESTful service layer quite easily. That's why it's going to become CanConnect by default in 3.0, because CanConnect doesn't use inheritance, which is a little bit better, but does more or less the exact same thing. What CanModel does is actually makes a type. So in this case, we could have a to-do type. And what I can do with CanModel is I can provide it a resource URL for where to get to-dos. And with this, I could, instead of kind of doing everything this way and like just hard coding my data, I'm gonna get rid of some of this here. I can create a list of to-dos as a new to-do list. And this is a list of to-dos that will be populated by sending these parameters to service to-dos and getting back the to-dos from the server. So I've done this. What's going on with, it shouldn't be working, but I thought I should be able to see the, what's going on? Items left. Oh, we're going to ignore that for now. We're not going to pass anything. Okay. So now you can see we're not getting any to-dos. We should be seeing a network request to services to-dos, but you can see it's not returning any data because we don't have a server running. So this brings up one of the other nice features of CanJS, which is CanFixture. And this allows you to simulate a URL and provide mock data. So I'll go service, views, actually want to call it services.
I was going to say, I think you stumbled upon JSBin's API there. That should have returned a 400 error, or returned a 200 error.
Yeah, I would have expected it to do that. But anyways, what I'm going to do is return the to-do data that we were using before. So I'm actually going to see if I can Control-Z a little bit to get back, so I don't have to copy it over again. Okay, so I'll just copy use dishes, complete true. So here, I'm going to return my data. This is what I'm simulating the server sending back. I'm going to create the dishes one.
And what is CanFixture?
CanFixture simulates AJAX requests and traps them and sends back mock data. Let's see here. CanFixture gets services to do, services to do's. Let's check out my developer tools. Let's see what's going wrong here. Use an operator search for length in services. Services to do's. What does that mean? Oh, do I still have my items left? No. All right, JSBin, why are you being so confusing then?
Oh, did it cache your... Oh, you're missing a comma.
Oh, I am?
Yep. Go down 2 lines. The first line of your data.
Oh. All right, there we go. Yay, okay. Now we're getting data from the server. Hooray. Okay. So CanModel can make it easy to get, save, update, destroy data on the server. Kind of show it off a little bit is this app is supposed to, as I click this button here, I'm supposed to delete data from the server. What I can do is I want to hook up, so when someone clicks this destroy button, we're going to destroy each to-do. So with that, I can write something like, CanJS has event binding in the template. So I can write, there's a new syntax for this too, but I'm gonna write the old one. I can write on click, I want to call destroy on my to-do, on each to-do. So every to-do is going to have a destroy method on it because every to-do, everything inside this to-do list is an individual to-do instance. And every to-do instance by default has a destroy method that will create a delete request to services, to-dos, / whatever the ID is. We can see this just so that here we can watch it break. Nothing will happen because we haven't implemented the server to actually support deleting. But we should be able to see the network request go out. Okay, see, it tried to delete this, but got a success back. So I guess that's just JS bin always returns success. And you'll notice if it got a successful response, which it did, the to-do is removed. That's one cool thing about CanJS lists or model lists, which to-do.list is a model list, is that whenever an instance of a model is destroyed on the server, it will automatically remove itself from the list. So I didn't have to do any logic to actually, once this to-do was deleted that we clicked on, to go back and remove it from the page. It's crazy to me that with CanJS, simply writing can-click destroy and making sure there's a model on a model instance is all you really need to get it so that it'll remove it, delete itself on the server, and remove itself from the list that it's any list that it's currently in. That's really cool.
So with this tool set, what you just showed us right now with models, fixtures, live binding, and observables, you could basically build the entire UI without having any services in existence. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Do you mean like, yeah, you can build your app before the service team has actually finished writing their services? Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. Okay. So now what I do want is I want items left to work. So what I'm going to do is, instead of just having some kind of arbitrary items left, I'm actually going to add a method to this to-dos list. So on a list of to-dos, there's a items left. Actually, I'm just going to, well, we'll see how I do it. I'm going to create a incomplete, or I'm actually going to call it active. I'm going to create an active helper function, and I'm going to use that in the template instead of creating items left. So what I mean is, I'm going to extend. I'm going to turn off auto run because it's going to drive me crazy. I might turn off for now. I'm going to take the default to-do list and extend some behaviors on it. Whenever you create a model, a default model is created. But I want to add some other helper. Sorry, whenever you create a model, a default model list is created for it, and I'm going to add some behaviors to that model list. I'm going to add an active function that is going to be always return to me the list of active to-dos. So this is going to return this filter to get each to-do, and just kind of like what we wrote before when I was writing the items left. Instead, this is going to return a list, but that's okay. So I'm going to return active.filter active, and I'm going to return to-do.after complete. And we want the ones that are not complete. So now on every to-do list, like this one, there's an active method that returns the active items. So with that, I can update my items left to instead say to-dos.active.length. And use that active function. It'll call it and then get the length back from it. So let me show that. And no, what's going on? Use active dot length. Let me make sure I did everything right. Use active. Maybe I need to make this active count. I think so. This definitely works in the. Probably just doing something silly again. So let's just make sure. Okay, what is going on? Let's see if JavaScript. I doubt this T not being, I doubt that's going to be very helpful. In case I wrote something wrong. Need a better debugger. There's something missing here. Okay, so that's right. New to-do list, to-do list.extend.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might have been working a minute ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, while you were setting that up, I was trying to debug it at the same time in the stream screen, and when I ran it, it showed 3 items left with the function that you had a minute ago.
I
wonder if there's like a JSPen like lag or something.
Yeah, now it's working, even though it wasn't before. I think there is. Okay, so that's just. Okay, weird. It was working all along. What the heck? That's so weird. Okay, JSPen, I loved you, but now I'm not as, I don't know. I've been burned now. I'll never look at you quite the same way, but I still love you. Okay. All right, it's working. I don't know what was going on, but here I just created an active. I have an active helper method that's returning just a list of to-dos that are active, and I'm using that in my template. So this is another way, like I really like to build, when I'm building CanJS applications, I put a lot of this kind of logic in the model. I make like kind of useful models and model lists that can kind of, depending on what the data is, give me other views into that data, and then I'll use those methods or properties in the template. So that's cool. I like that, right? You could imagine the active method would be useful somewhere else. Okay, so I wanted to talk about can components. Maybe we'll do this really quick. What do I want to do? Do I want to do the list or do I want to do the create widget? I'll probably do the create. So CanJS supports custom elements. Let's say instead of this input element here, which is supposed to create a new to-do, I wanted to put in to-do create. And I wanted to put that in the page. CanJS lets me define, I don't know where I'm going to put this, maybe at the top. It's going at the top. But I might need the model, so I'll do it right here. This will need to depend on the model. So I can create a custom element with can component. And I want to make the tag that it's going to represent to do create. And I can provide it. You notice it's gone right now, but I'm going to provide a template that anytime to do create, anytime to do create is found in the page, I want to render this content inside of to do create. So I could write hello, and you'll notice hello is now positioned where to do create, inside to do create in the page. It's hello. So if I were just to take out to do create, I could paste in its old what was there, which was that input element. I'm going to change the quotes around so it goes in fine. And now I get back what needs to be done. Awesome. So what I want to happen is I want, when someone hits enter on this input, I want to create a new to-do on the server. So I'm gonna have my view model. So your view model is like it's defining a CAN map. Really, what this you could there's an implicit CAN map extend. So I can create my own CAN maps with their own helper functions and methods and things like that, and own properties. If I wanted a default like message property, I could create a CAN map with like a hello world. And then this view model is what's used to render this template. So I could write, instead of what needs to be done for the placeholder, I could put my message in there. Now I get hello world. So this, think of it as every time a new to-do create is going to be called. Let's break this out a little bit because I think it makes more sense. The shorthand is sometimes too short. What I can do is I'll do to-do create view model. That's this type. I'm passing a type of map to this component. And an instance of this type of map is going to be created every time to-do create is found. So I can add methods here like create to-do. And I can, for instance, write new, well, first I'll get that called. So what I want to have happen is, let me hide my HTML for right now. I'm kind of done with that for a little bit. When someone, I want to break this up into multi-line. I can also put this in a template of its own, which is what you do in a bigger application, but I'm not doing it here. Oops. Why does it keep keeping my focus there? Oh, that's the autofocus. That's why it's doing that. I should remove that just because it's kind of annoying. I'm gonna remove that for right now. So it doesn't keep bringing my cursor over there. Okay, so what I want is on click, or actually when someone hits the enter key, I'm gonna listen to the enter, when someone hits the enter key, and on that, I'm gonna freeze JS bin again.
Should probably turn auto run off.
Yeah, while I'm editing templates. It's cool that it goes, but when you're editing templates, it can freak out too easily. All right, let's kill this page, shall we? Just make sure I got the page saved, and we have to kill this process. Let's reload. Thank you for doing that. And where did my can't enter? When can't enter is called, I want to call create to do, and I want to pass it the element, the element's value. So this will be the name of the to-do. Let's make sure that this is working. second. So, oh, well, actually, I'm kind of confused. Why would that? It looks like it's outputting the jQuery object, not the element.val. This might be a bug in the current version of CanJS. Let's just do the element, and then we'll clean it up. Yeah, okay. Should have been passing the val method of jQuery when you do element.val, but here we're just going to get the input element. I'll put $. Now I should be able to do input.val. Yeah, okay. It certainly works in, I think, the old versions of CanJS. Okay, so that's our to-do name, and what I want to do is create a new to-do that's not complete, and pass in the name, and I'm going to save that to the server. Okay, so this should create the to-do on the server. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit just because I don't, there's really good ways of doing this now in latest if you're using Can Connect. But I'm going to cheat, and once this to-do is actually saved, I'm going to add it to the list of to-dos that we're rendering to the page. I can talk later about cross-component communication. I would have to create a list component and make these things communicate. But I just don't want to do that right now because I want to at least talk about can.route. So I would do something like todos.push. This is going to have this newly saved to-do, and I'm going to add that newly created to-do when it's saved to the server. And then to make it so that it's savable to the server, I'm going to do a fixture for it. So when someone does a post to services to-dos, I'm just going to return, by default, I just have to return whatever data the to-do client, the client doesn't already have on the to-do, in this case an ID. So I'm just going to return a random ID whenever someone creates a to-do. So with this, if I want to, actually, I'll shift it, unshift it, so it's added to the front of the list of to-dos. Now I should be able to go learn CanJS, and now it shows up. Now in here I could be a little smarter and clear my input. There. So now we just created something on the server and added it to our list of to-dos. Can Connect will actually add the item to the list of to-dos for you with a lot of intelligence. It knows which lists to add which items to, but that's a whole nother thing. So you don't even need this kind of code if you're using Can Connect.
If you wanted to unshift versus push with Connect, would you do something custom in that case?
There's currently yes, but in the long term, no. Can Connect is supposed to respect order. So you, assuming the default ordering, if you didn't pass an ordering, was by ID, Can Connect should see that, oh, well, the order that things are listed here is just by ID. It would actually probably add at the bottom because the to-dos are listed in that order. If you want to do something custom where it was actually things that were added were breaking the otherwise order, normally in an application what you do is instead of requesting the data, you would say sort, by date ascending or something like that, right? And you can tell Can Connect through set algebra what this means so that when new items come in, they get put in the right location. So yes and no. Like if you had something where they were sorted, you wanted it different for new items that were added, then yeah, you might have to create your own date algebra, or you would have to kind of do it yourself, just manually go and add and remove things yourself. Okay. Okay, so the final part of CanJS, custom elements. So we talked about it has custom elements that you can create. It has observables and it has models. The final bit is routing. So here, down here, and normally I do this part in another component, but I'll just probably do it in the page. Normally, like, so if I click on active here, it's supposed to show the active to-dos, and I click on completed, it's supposed to show the completed ones, and it's supposed to show all of them here. What I'm going to do is my to-dos to show which to-dos I actually want to be displaying. I'm going to loop through a to-dos to like display to-dos and list those. And I'm going to create a compute that represents which to-dos are actually being displayed. Should be displayed based on the route. So let me go to console. Let's talk about what I mean. So first thing I'm going to do is make it so I'm not going to deal with the class selected right now because that's just going to take too long. What I want to do is when I click on, let's say, this active link here, instead of an href, well, actually, I'm going to take it a step back further. This is going to be hard to demonstrate because you're not going to be able to actually see the URL of the page without me typing in the console. But let me talk about CanRoute ready then, or CanRoute. So, okay.
If you wanted to illustrate route with a demo that actually has it in it, we actually have that in the docs, I believe.
Yeah, that's okay. I think I'll be able to do a decent job here. Okay, so CanRoute, when you want routing to start ticking up, CanRoute is like a magical can map that's connected to the hash or the URL of your page. So if I check out my pages, by default it works on the hash. So if I were to do something like location.hash, I get empty. And if I check can.route.after, there's nothing inside it. It's an empty object. To start routing, to start the connection between CanRoute's properties and the hash, you call CanRoute ready. Now, once that happens, if I were to change a CanRoute property, and let's say I change it to filter, and I change it to active. Now, if I check the hash, you'll see it looks like this. It has filter equals active. Now, if I were to change the hash to something like filter equals complete, and then read the complete property of CanRoute, or sorry, read the filter property, it's now complete. Right? So if you change the hash, it'll update the properties on CanRoute, depending on what the hash looks like. And if you update the properties on CanRoute, it'll update the hash. You can make pretty rules, but without any pretty rules, pretty translations between properties and what the hash should look like, without any pretty ones, it kind of ends up looking kind of ugly. Looks like this, but it works in all cases, so that's good. Okay. So that is the basics of CanRoute. Now, there's also a helper. Well, let me set up, actually, I'm going to first set up CanRoute to work before I set up the linking to work. I think that's actually easier. So let me get rid of the console. What I want to do is instead of to-dos here being all to-dos, I want to actually have display to-dos. That's going to be a can compute. And what it's going to do is say, if it's going to get CanRoute's filter property. I'm going to be smart and turn this off. I'm going to say, if filter is equal to active, then I want to be returning all the active to-dos. So return to-dos.active. That's why I made that helper. It's helpful in a few places. Otherwise, if filter is equal to complete, I'm going to make a complete helper real quick. Otherwise, if it's complete, I'm going to return to-dos.complete. And then finally, if I'm just going to return all to-dos. So displayed to-dos is a compute that will change every time the filter property changes. It'll return a different set of to-dos. So instead of the to-dos that we're rendering, I'm going to change it to displayed to-dos. And then when I run this, we'll have all to-dos here. But look what happens if I change my route. If I change its filter property to complete, it shows only the completed ones. If I change it to active, it shows only the active ones. And if I remove the filter property, it goes back to showing everything. Now, I can make these links work by going to my template, and there's a helper that CanJS comes with called CanHref that you pass it what values you want set. So if I want for active filter to equal active, I write it like this. And if I want the completed, filter to equal completed when I click on completed, or complete when I click on completed, I can write it like this. And then when I click on the big one, I want really just nothing. I'm not sure if this works. I've actually never tried this in an app. Hopefully it does. I want to empty. So let's try this. Active. Oh, do I need the 8? Oh, it's not part of core. I forgot. Is it CanView href? Do we have this being built?
I'm not sure off the top of my head on this one.
This is a plugin. I forgot about that. So this is. Let's see. No. Okay, I can't show this. Well, we'll make a note for David to include this. For some reason, I thought it was part of core or going to be. Let me make sure. No, it's not part of core. We're not building it. Okay, so there's a plugin that isn't linkable into JSBin that allows you to do this kind of thing. The plugin is actually really easy to write yourself for the most part. or make a helper that does the exact same thing. I can make a link helper and pass it to my view when I render it. I'm just going to create a link helper. And this is just going to take what we want the filter property to be. And this is just going to return a, it's going to call can.route. I think is it URL? And I'm just going to pass it filter as filter, or filter is. And then I think I can just write, let's just try this on selected. Link, and I'll write, oh, sorry, which one is this? Oh, not selected. I'm not going to do this on all, I'm going to do this on active to start, make sure it works. I should just be able to do something like, href equals link active. Well, it did something. Hold on. No value. No, that's not super useful. There we go. Filtered active. That looks like it should have worked. Then I return. Oh, well, maybe it did work. Okay. So now I should be able to click this, and it shows me just the active ones. I don't know what's going on though. Oh, I know what's wrong. I'm not calling can_route_ready. Duh. So again, you always have to call can_route_ready to set up the attachment of can_route to the actual hash. So with that, now it works. The active link works. And all we can just go with the hard code. Oh, yay. Okay, so that's kind of a dummy link helper that we made real quick using the very, like this helper has been around forever. It's pretty useful. Cool, so that's it. CanJS is live binding templates, which we've seen here. Observables, observable objects, observable lists. Also lets you connect with can model your observables to a RESTful service. We have can fixture that lets you simulate AJAX responses. We have custom elements. And then finally, there's routing.
Just as a quick addendum, the CanView href plugin is linkable. Took me a second to find it, but I'll drop that in. For those that were in the Gitter chat, I just popped it in the Gitter chat there. And because this is on video, you now see it on the video as well.
And what was it? CanView href?
Yep.
Okay, so let's try that real quick then.
I just linked it in the Hangout chat as well.
We have it hopefully working. So if I run it, You can see all the different ways. Let's see, completed. Inspect it, and looks right. Awesome. So now I can use the CanHref helper, my own helper that I created, and just some hard coding if you really wanted to do it that way. Awesome. Thanks, Alexis. Cool. That's it. I don't know if there's any questions on the hitter.
No questions.
Cool.
If you have questions in the future on any of the trainings we've done so far over the past 16 weeks or so, feel free to drop them in at any time. We hang out in this chat quite often.
What do we got next week?
Next week was pretty good. We have a general testing overview. So we can talk about quite a few different tools and approaches that we generally take when we're testing everything from the UI to RESTful services to the code behind logic behind the UI, as opposed to the front end itself.
That'd be a really good one. Cool. All right, well, until next week, I'm Justin Meyer, and with me as always, Alexis Brill. And see you next week.